Welcome to session 14, which is factoring of polynomials. First, let's review real quickly our multiplication using FOIL. There are two different types that I want to stress today, and that is x minus 3 times 2x minus 5. Remember, we multiply first. X times 2x is 2x squared. Outer, inner, last, okay? Outside is minus 5x, inside minus 6x. That gives me a minus 11x. Last, minus 3 times a minus 5 gives me a plus 15. Because the signs were the same in each parentheses, a minus 3 and a minus 5. A minus times a minus gives me a plus. But watch, this one was a minus because both of them were minus. Remember, you had to do some factoring of that in the previous lesson, and you should have caught on to that. Look at that sign. If it's a plus, then it tells you what the signs in both parentheses were. Multiplying here, 2x times x is 2x squared. Outside gives me a plus 8x. Inside gives me a minus 1x. Uh-oh, they're not the same, so I don't add them. I have a minus and a plus, so therefore I subtract. Well, minus 1 and a plus 8, if you want to say algebraically, you are adding them, but in actuality, you have a minus and a plus, so you subtract. That will give me a 7. The larger is the plus, so that is plus 7x. The last term, minus 1 times a plus 4 gives me minus 4. Okay. Now, rather than multiplying, let's take some practice problems on factoring. This next one, the first example here, x squared minus 8x plus 16. Well, we can start setting up our two parentheses. X squared. What times what gives me x squared? Fairly simple, so that's x and x. That sign is a plus, so that means I had to have either two plus signs or two minus signs to get me a plus. But look, this is minus, so I'm going to have minus. 16. Well, I can either do 1 times 16, 2 times 8, 4 times 4. Let's just choose, and there are also their reversals. Let's choose 4 and 4. The main thing that we need to check is our outside and inside. So let's check the outside is a minus 4x. Inside minus 4x, that gives me minus 8x. They are both minus, so therefore you add minus 8x is the result. So this, remember, is my answer. Let's try the next one. A little bit more difficult because the first term has a 2 in front of it as a coefficient, but we do it the same way. 2x squared gives me 2x and 1x, and I do not have to write the 1 unless that's the only number that holds the position of the term. Okay? minus. Minus means I subtracted somewhere. So let's go ahead and play with the number, or put a plus and a minus. If this last term has a minus, one's a plus, one's a minus. I'm just putting them there to begin with. We will see if they are correct when we check it. The factors of 3, 1 and 3. Let's check. Outside gives me a minus 6x. Inside gives me plus 1x. Plus 1 and a minus 6 does not give me my middle term right there. So I need to try again. Instead of 1 and 3, let's try 3 and 1. Will that make a difference? The outside gives me a minus 2x. The inside gives me plus 3x. Plus 3x minus 2x gives me positive 1x. So I don't have to change the sign. There is my answer. Let's try the next one. Look, the number term is first. And remember last week, or in the last session, we learned if the number is first, then it has to stay in the first position in the parentheses. So let's put our parentheses. 2. Well, 1 and 2. That last number has a minus. That means the signs are going to be different. You notice I'm not looking at the other sign. I just say this one sign tells me the signs are different. So 1 is a plus, 1's a minus. 3x squared. Well, it can be 3x and 1x. That gives me the outside is a minus 1x. The inside gives me a plus 6x. A plus 6 and a minus 1 gives me a plus 5. My middle term is a minus 5. So I got the number right. The only thing that's wrong is the sign. So I go back and I fudge a little bit and I say, okay, change this to a minus and then a plus. So now, when I do the checking underneath, a minus, that becomes a plus 1x and a minus 6x. That gives me minus 5x. But you notice my number term was there. And when I checked my outside and inside, I got the right number. It was just the wrong sign. So not only do you have to make sure that this number is correct, you have to make sure the sign is correct as well. Make sure the number is correct and the sign is correct when you're double checking for that middle term. And you have to check the middle term. That's the key. I can't just put down something and say that's it. I might get the first term and the last term right, but the middle term also has to be factored in. Has to have the correct combination in your outside and your inside. So this is my answer. Okay. a few more examples. So let's start with this 6 plus 5x minus 6x squared. Okay. The number is in the first position. So when I choose my parentheses, the number will be in the first position in each parentheses. Or 6. Well, that can either be 1 and 6 or 2 and 3. You just try. You pick and choose. If 2 and 3 or 1 and 6 don't work, try the other one. Let's just try 2 and 3. This last term is a minus, so that means I had to have a positive and a negative. So plus and minus. To get 6x squared, well, we ran into the 6 just a second ago, so it's either 1 and 6 or 2 and 3. So if I choose 2x and 3x, look, I have common factors. I should not have common factors within a parentheses. So right there, that tells you that something is wrong. Hopefully everybody sees 2 and 2 are in the same parentheses. That's a common factor. They cannot be in the same parentheses if it is factored correctly. So instead of 2x and 3x, let's try 3x and 2x. The outside gives me a minus 4x. The inside gives me a plus 9x. Plus 9 minus 4 gives me plus 5. There we go. So this is my answer. I didn't even have to change the signs that time. Next example, 2x squared minus 3x plus 1. Okay. Start with your two parentheses. 2 is 1x and 2x. The last sign, that's a positive. That last sign in my polynomial is a positive. That means I have either two negatives multiplied together or two positives multiplied together. Well, that's easy to check because this is a minus. That means I have to have minus. So minus and minus. The only factors of 1 are 1 and 1. Check the outside, minus 1x. The inside, minus 2x. That gives me minus 3x. In your assignment, you're going to have problems like you had in the last session, factoring, and problems here where that last term is a minus. Let's look at the next example. 6x squared plus 5x minus 4. Two parentheses. 6x squared. I'm going to try 2x and 3x. The last term is a minus. So that means one of them is plus, one of them is minus. The factors of 4 are 1 and 4, or 2 and 2. Let's try 2 and 2. But wait, when I put a 2 in this parentheses, in this first parentheses, that gives me a common factor of 2. But even if I switch these, I'd still have a 2. So that means I'm not going to use 2 and 2. Let's try 1 and 4. The outside gives me a minus 8x. The inside gives me plus 3x. A plus 3x and a minus 8x gives me minus 5x. Well, I have the 5, but the signs are wrong. So you remember what I do? I just change them. This is a minus. This is a plus. So that gives me a plus 8x. A minus 3x gives me positive 5x. Here is my answer. Now, you remember when you were multiplying where one was plus and one was minus, you had some that came out to a 2-number answer, like this. So if I have a 2-number answer, notice that the x squared, that's a perfect square. That's x squared. It's x and x. But look at 9. That's also a perfect square. 3 times 3. So therefore, we call problems like this the difference, because it subtracts, of 2 squares. This is the difference of 2 squares. We still put our 2 parentheses. X squared is x and x. For a minus there, one has to be plus, one has to be minus. 3 and 3. The outside gives me a minus 3x. Inside gives me plus 3x. They subtract out, so I don't have a middle term. See, I don't have a middle term right here. So my answer is x plus 3 times x minus 3. Now this one is going to be fairly easy. If you see the difference of 2 squares, you should be able to do it without checking the underneath, because there is no middle term. No middle term. Let's try a few more of those. Okay. 4x squared minus 1. Is 4x squared a perfect square? What times itself gives me 4x squared? 2x and 2x. So let's put our parentheses here. And we're going to go 2x and 2x. There's only 2 terms. There's only 2 terms. 1, 2. So one has to be a plus, one has to be a minus. Is 1 a perfect square? Yes. 1 times 1. So therefore it is 1 here and 1 here. If you want to do it in your head, minus 2x plus 2x, it's gone. They should be the same. Let's look at the next one. X squared plus 4. Uh-oh, I see something wrong with this. Because I told you that this is called the difference of 2 squares. X squared is a squared, it's x and x. 4 is a perfect square, it's 2 and 2. But there's something wrong. Look at this right here. Let me get a different color here. Look at that right there. That's plus, and I said it's the difference of two squares. The difference of two squares. This is not the difference of two squares. So if I tried to factor that to x plus 2 times x plus 2, I would get plus 2x and a plus 2x is plus 4x. I don't have a middle term here. I don't have a middle term. But by using this method, I should have a middle term. But I don't. Because remember I said the difference of two squares, it has to be a minus. So this is crossed out, and I have to write CBF. Do you remember what CBF stands for? Cannot be factored. But you do need to cross it out and say CBF if you tried it. If you notice that you have two terms and they're both perfect squares, but you have a plus sign there, you can just say CBF already because it's a plus. It's not the difference of two squares. Okay? Let's try the next one. Well, it's two terms and it is difference. So I'm okay on that. Is 25 a perfect square? 25 turns into 5 times 5. 36 is, okay, let's go ahead and write that down. 5 and 5. Remember, the number is first. That is important. That is important. Okay? 1 plus, 1 minus. 36. Well, I can have 1 and 36, 2 and 18, 3 and 12, 4 and 9, 6 and 6. But remember, it's two squares. So I have to choose the one that has the same numbers, and that is 6 and 6. So 6x and 6x. One's plus, one's minus. Minus 30 plus 30 gives me no middle term. Let me show you one other thing that I would like for you to be careful of. If I give you x squared plus 25, plus 20. How about if I give you x squared minus 20? X squared minus 20. That's a perfect square, but is 20 a perfect square? No. So here's another case where you could go directly to cannot be factored. If this number is not a perfect square, it cannot be factored. So 2 reasons when you have 2 terms that you cannot factor it. Now, I hope you remember that sometimes when you have the 3 terms and you're multiplying a polynomial with 3 terms, they sometimes cannot be factored either, but very rarely. So be very careful with things like that. But I would probably on the next test give you a problem like this, or possibly even like this. So be very careful that you can recognize the difference of 2 squares. Okay, hopefully you didn't have very much difficulty on your last session homework. So I'm going to be doing the same thing. I will be posting or sending you through text messages the problems for today's session. Problems for today's session will be in your text message sometime tomorrow, probably tomorrow afternoon. Okay? So I hope you have a good Columbus Day.